Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Modern Firm Podcast. I am again your guest moderator for the second time. I am Dr. Kristy Short. I am the Senior Content Strategist at WriteWorks, and I am so grateful to have my next guest on. She's got a jam-packed schedule. She is co-founder and partner of ConvergenceCoaching, which is a national consulting firm for CPAs, influencers. She's also a powerhouse speaker. She's an author. She's been listed multiple times on Accounting Today's top 10 and top 100 most influential people in accounting, as well as CPA Practice Advisor's top 25 thought leaders, and several times has been on the most powerful women in accounting list, also by CPA Practice Advisor. Welcome, Jen Wilson.
Thank you, Kristy. Thanks for having me. Hearing that list is like, I'm a little bit humbled and awkward.
It's always awkward to hear somebody praise you and list all your accolades. I don't know if you remember, but years ago, I was on the most powerful women in accounting list. I think it was 2012 to 2015. And we were in that little room together. They rush you out off of stage. We didn't have a lot of time to talk, but I know we were introduced. We've come in contact recently because of the National Pipeline Advisory Group report, which I'm super excited to talk about today. So I'm just so happy to reconnect with you. I feel like we go way back.
I think we do go way back, and we're both, really focused on our love of the profession.
Yes.
And our commitment to see it grow and thrive. And so I think anytime we have connected, that common purpose has always given us a bond.
I will also throw this out there. So you are going to be one of the main stage sessions at WriteWorks Inspire Conference, which runs December 2nd through the 4th this year, where you will be digging deeper and unpacking further the National Pipeline Advisory Group report. I mean, anyone who wants solutions, wants some insight into how to finally overcome this staffing shortage needs to be there and definitely needs to be in your session. So I thank you for accepting that invite, and I look forward to seeing you in Florida.
I'm really excited to be there, really.
So in the words of my 6-year-old nephew, let's get at it. I don't know where he came up with that phrase or where he learned it, but I want to jump into the National Pipeline Advisory Group, what it is, how it came about. Can you just give us a brief genesis of where this happened?
Sure. May 2023, AICPA's Governing Council passed a resolution to form the National Pipeline Advisory Group to develop a national pipeline strategic plan. And they called for the plan to be data-driven. They wanted the advisory group to include really all stakeholders, multiple perspectives, and they called for us to gather, study, and then issue a strategic plan or report on the pipeline challenges and strategies to overcome them. And so that last May happened. And by July, 22 of us were in a room and we were starting our work. And we did a really serious job of that work for over 12 months, which was awesome.
It's a really serious report. I've read all 80 pages of it twice because I had to. It was a lot to take in. How did you become involved, though, specifically ConvergenceCoaching?
Well, I was invited to be the independent facilitator for this group of 22 because of our strategic planning background, because our knowledge of the profession, because our willingness to sort of say what needs to be said, and to hold the group accountable for guiding principles, including the need to check our biases, to really use fact and data, not opinions, not emotions, to really look broadly. They thought that I might, that Jen Wilson in particular might be able to guide the ship. And then ConvergenceCoaching provided other resources to help with, project development and plan development.
Yeah. And just restating again, because you do have a very overt passion to move the profession forward. So I mean, after reading the report, I know there were a lot of people involved, but certainly I think you and Convergence Coaching were the right independent facilitators to move this forward. I want to quote directly from the executive summary. And quite frankly, if no one reads anything but the executive summary, that's also smashing. It gives you a lot of insight into what this report covers. But it says, quote, "We need a cohesive, unified, data-driven, and flexible approach to bring more people into accounting." I would say that's a pretty accurate description of the overall report. Would you?
I would. And, it was a tall order. That's a tall order.
Yes.
And I wasn't sure exactly how we would do that or if we could, because there were so many different viewpoints and so many opinions and so much conversation. Our work was hitting at a time when, there was a lot of emotion and frustration around talent in the pipeline. And so it was a tall order, and yet it was really specific, so we could look hard at it. We created guiding principles that governed all of our work. We presenced those, said them, looked at them every single time we met, and we met in person. I don't know, 6, 8, maybe even more times. We met almost every month by a video call of a couple hours, some months, multiple video calls of a couple hours.
Safe to say pretty labor intensive.
Yeah, super labor intensive. But every time we met, we checked in on our guiding principles and said, do we feel like we're following them? And, so we established them at the beginning, and then we used them. And they included things like transparency and no elephants left unpresenced. If there was an awkward situation or something that was on someone's heart and they really felt like, hey, we're not talking about this, or this feels contradictory, or whatever it is, all of that was super encouraged. And so the group that was gathered, multiple stakeholders. So we had academics and we had firm leaders of a variety of sizes, and not just service delivery leaders, but also operational leaders, which was really great.
Sure. Because you need a mix of people. You need perspectives from all vantage points when you're dealing with an issue, a staffing issue that's been ongoing for, let's face it, decades.
Yes.
This isn't a new problem.
Yeah. And so we had finance department leaders too. We had state society execs. We had regulators. The AICP had one seat also. And so it was really interesting, because you bring that group together, and then they developed their guiding principles, and we lived up to them. And it required that we kind of admit our biases, look at our entrenched thinking. We watched a really great 17-minute TED Talk by Adam Grant about entrenched thinking. And we did that before we met our very first time. And that helped a lot with us all realizing, man, I've got a lot of opinions on this, but yeah, I'm not sure they're all data driven. And then we went to work on the study of data.
Yeah. So I just want to give a quick highlight of what's in the report. And this is all part of the executive summary, but this will give our listeners and viewers a really good idea of what's coming. And I'm hoping that it will really motivate them to go read the entire report. So what the report highlights is an analysis of the changing labor market and education landscape. It looks at the root causes of the pipeline shortage, and then it recommends strategies and tactics for bolstering the accounting pipeline, talent pipeline. And then it highlights ongoing efforts. So this isn't a one and done. This isn't a report you wrote, here are some suggestions. I mean, this really calls people to action. It's going to require, let's call it a national coalition, to really move this forward and make it work. It's not a report that they read and then it's over. There's more action required after the fact.
Oh, for sure. And we had some really interesting insights, that followed us throughout this. And I do want to start with like the conceptual ideas, not necessarily the specific strategic areas, but one of them was just what you were talking about. There has to be a sort of a national approach where the associations and association leaders and firm leaders and state society leaders inside the accounting profession, so the leadership, works together in a collaborative way to identify the top priorities out of what we recommended, and works together, not goes off in a corner and independently starts working it, but leverages one another's resources, talents, perspectives, because these associations include those that represent firms, those that represent industry, those that represent academics, and so many more, so many more different perspectives. And so that was one thing is, boy, unification, working together, collaboration on the go forward plan, super critical and hard to do. It isn't done well, hasn't been done well in the past. Now, there is an upcoming meeting where a group of those association leaders are going to come together and share what they've been doing already in the area of pipeline, discuss the NPAG report, and see what they can create in a go forward strategy. So that's one cool thing. But I do want to be careful, Kristy. Sometimes we think, good, those association leaders, they need to hurry up and fix this for us.
Right.
Like this is someone else's fault. Or if they don't fix it, then universities should fix it. Or if they don't fix it, those firm leaders, they're the ones.
No more finger pointing. Let's just all work together. I hear what you're saying.
Yeah, but not only that, individuals, you and me
Yes.
and anybody else listening to this, we don't have to wait for an institution, an organization. We don't have to wait for anybody to solve this for us.
Right.
We can take individual action that would make a huge difference. And so I do want to stress that because that was a big aha for me in the process of learning and for the rest of the group. Wow. Yes, nationally, we need to work together. Yes, association leadership, firms, finance departments, universities, regulators, we need to work together. But boy, there's a lot of activity we could do at the individual human being level that would move this needle.
For sure. I mean, even this podcast, like getting the message out, you speaking at Inspire in December, getting the good word out. I think it's really important. So again, let's get at these themes. I know we're not going to be able to hit all of them because we have a limited time, but you're going to unpack all this in December. It's a must-see main stage session at Inspire. There were 6 themes that were highlighted within the report. And the biggest one to me was the academic experience, making the academic experience more engaging. And I'm going to combine the first two.
Okay.
So making the academic experience more engaging, but also addressing time and cost of education. So if I do a quick little reenactment, my undergrad years, if most undergrad students were like me, you weren't rich, you were going to school full time, you were probably working 1 or 2 part-time jobs to pay for tuition and rent and food and all that good stuff, typical middle class stuff that you had to do to get through college. There is a lot of time in becoming a CPA, getting to that level, the added hours, the work experience. Can we talk about these themes of making the academic experience more engaging and addressing the time and cost of education in terms of how you present this in the report?
Sure.
I know that's a really big question.
Well, and there isn't just sort of one perspective like the middle class experience that we have to address from a student perspective. It's a very wide range of perspectives that may be attracted to accounting. And this is a good time for me to say that the whole purpose, the mission that the National Pipeline Advisory Group devised for themselves, their work in this report was to create an environment where more people are attracted to a career in accounting, that some number of whom will go on to become licensed. It wasn't necessarily we're trying to grow the number of CPAs. We're trying to grow the number of people who think, man, it would be great to be in accounting. That could be a career for me. And so obviously the academic experience is a super critical piece of that. Now,
so can I just interject quickly?
Sure.
So
yes.
And you're addressing that because my understanding is there's a pretty high attrition rate in the accounting major. Is that a true statement?
Well, so out of every 9, and this is data that is readily available. It is sourced in the report. We tried to use for statistics like this, the regular reporting that is already being done by universities and colleges. Same with when we talk about starting salaries. We didn't generate that data. We went and got accepted data. And so this little statistic is pretty disheartening. And that is that out of every business major, let's say 9 business majors, every one of those often is exposed to a principles of accounting course as part of their business major. And so 9 business majors on their way in and preparing to go through whatever and declare their majors, 9 take this principles of accounting class, but only 1 chooses to go on and become an accounting major and get an accounting degree.
The stat is 1 in 9?
Yes.
Oh, that's harsh.
Yes. So it's 1 in 9 that declare an accounting major. So that's a challenge. And we can't lay it all at the feet of the academic experience, because they might have not chosen an accounting major because they heard that starting salaries for accounting weren't as high as they are for finance or for actuarial or for economics, or, there's a whole bunch of business related starting salaries. Most of them, the starting salaries are higher than accounting. So that could be part of it, right? They hear that, or they could be hearing from their friends and family and all of us who complain at the kitchen table about how hard we work in accounting and what a grind it is and how brutal busy season is and all that stuff. And so they might not choose it for that reason too. So we can't say it's all the college experience, but we certainly gathered data. There was data that showed, and the Pennsylvania Institute of CPAs produced wonderful data here. So did the Center for Audit Quality. They provided us all kinds of insights about why people didn't choose the major. And one of them was, I found the coursework boring, or it wasn't engaging, or there was a lot of conversation about the actual academic experience. So we created some strategies to work to help relieve that. And they include getting practitioners involved in the classroom and getting real life case studies and involving technology and simulations and focusing less on debits and credits and maybe more on the entrepreneurial aspects, and also focusing more on like widening the view that not only college students, but high schoolers and middle schoolers have on what is a career in accounting. Because sometimes it's like tax or audit. It's very narrow. It's public, not even finance options. But you and I have a career in accounting. You know what I mean? Like,
it's awesome. I love it.
There are a lot of people that can have a career in accounting, and it doesn't have to look like just 2 pathways or something. So anyway, there's a lot of ideas in the report about making that more engaging. And certainly we are calling on the academic community, and they are the AAA, the association, American Association of Academics. Those folks are at work on this principles course and suggesting updated approach and syllabi and such. And so there are a lot of innovative universities testing cool ideas. So this isn't like nobody's been working on it. There are things that work, but man, that will make a huge difference.
So I don't want to run past that stat. So the 1 in 9, because you mentioned something really interesting, and it's that, maybe the student decides, I've heard accounting is boring, so there's an element of storytelling here. And I think that's the 6th theme in the report. So I'm jumping a little bit ahead here, but I think that's a really important point to make, is that we have to have a better story, because there's so much more to the accounting profession than tax work or audit work. There's, you can get into the tech part of it. You can get into the advisory part of it. You can open your own firm. There's the entrepreneurial part of it that you mentioned as well. The story has to be better. And you hit on that in the report as well. So I just didn't want to run past that.
I appreciate it. And I will say that, yes, I think we as a profession can tell a better story. And that's a wonderful place for all of the associations to unify and create more of a brand platform. And I'm not talking about advertising and all that. I'm not saying that we need to do, television ads on the Super Bowl. That's not what I'm saying. But
wouldn't that be fun? Can you imagine what that would look like? That'd be so fun.
I have a dream, by the way, that Taylor Swift or Beyonce would, come on and say, hey, I want to talk about my CPA and how they help me with my royalty calculations.
I'm working on Taylor Swift. I'm working on getting her endorsement
or minimize my taxes. That would help us immensely. The pipeline would probably see a lift from an influencer like that. But meanwhile, we're all influencers, and we aren't doing that good a job. We do tend, as a profession, to focus on the negative. And we wear a red badge of courage of hours and how hard the work is and how technical it is and how hard it is to keep up with the standards. And, so instead of talking about what a cool profession is, what a difference it makes for other people, how crucial it is to the health of our global economy, how
Yes.
significantly it impacts the wealth of individuals and the financial well-being of those individuals, how significantly it helps in organizations and all businesses. Really, it's part of the language and lifeblood of business. And so we don't tell any of that. We don't talk about it being tech forward, about it being fun, because it is. I mean, I have tons of friends and we have lots of fun. So we're pretty poor. And I do want us to pay attention to that at the individual level. I said earlier, yes, associations, we all want to make them solve it.
Yeah.
Individually, we could all look at where we're telling the story, how we could tell it better. We could also go out and tell it more. We could tell it.
Yes.
There's a statistic in the paper, and it's something like 45% of folks that declare an accounting major knew before they came to college. Okay. So they're deciding in high school, sometimes as early as middle school. And one of the big influencers or deciders on that, I know an accountant. I know a CPA. I met one. They came to my class. My uncle's one. I did a work study program. I have a client of mine that's always had this really thriving, fantastic college internship program. But he and I, have been talking about this plan all the way along. And as I learned about the high schoolers, he went out and started a high school internship program. And I was so excited. His firm's going to have high school interns. That's going to help us. And so we can all tell a better story for sure.
Yeah, and I like what you said. Not only tell a better story, but tell it more often. There can be a focus on the negative for sure. But, go out there and do reels. Go out there and do a LinkedIn Live. Have an internship program and then have those interns speaking about, the value of what they're learning. Yes. And the fact that the accounting profession is so diverse. You do have choices beyond what people think are the standards, which again are audit, tax, those things that aren't necessarily sexy. There's just so much more to it. And again, yeah, let's tell a better story and let's tell that story more. And everybody beyond the associations, individuals need to start telling that as well. We all need to be in this together.
Yes.
Community effort.
And Kristy, one thing I sometimes get asked is, are you asking us to sort of puff up the profession and tell a story that's not true? And the answer is no. We're not saying tell a fakey story. We're saying tell a better story, tell a true story, tell a story that's true for you, but look at how you characterize it, because we have been coming from the negative. There are really great things right this minute without another bit of work that we could say about our work and our profession and the career path that we followed and the blessings that it has afforded to us. But NPAG is calling for people not just to tell a better story, but to also make sure we have a better story to tell. And yes. There's a whole chapter on employer solutions, a whole focus on making the employment experience more engaging, more impactful, more inclusive, to really make a difference at employment. Because the truth is, we can attract more to the front of the pipeline and into the funnel. But if when they go to work in that first 5 years, they don't find what they need from the employment experience, they're going to bounce out and they're going to talk about it on the way. And that impacts both the story that we're telling and the size of our workforce.
I mean, I tell you, I don't have to tell a fake story. Like I never, so as a creative, as a marketing person, as a writer, as a musician, would I have ever thought I would still be in the accounting profession? I started my accounting career at Thomson Reuters. Did I think I would still be in this profession 25 years later? No, I didn't. But it's so diverse and there's so many different things that you can do to make an impact. That's the story. Like that's my individual story. And I would, the action item would be on others to go out and do a little self-reflection and then go out with that story of victory that you had as well. I mean, I love that. I just love that idea of changing the story and telling it more.
Yes.
Love it.
Great.
So we're coming to time, but I don't want to skip this next theme. So can we talk briefly about, in the report, one of the themes is to grow support for the CPA exam candidates. I know the CPA exam is hard. It's time consuming. What are some of the things in the report that support this theme?
Well, we have a poor first time taker statistic, and then not a great pass rate. And so clearly we need to provide better support. And there's several things to think about, but one for sure I want to cover is the idea that employers, firms, and finance departments who have CPA candidates could do a lot more to create a cohort with those candidates, assign a shepherd. We use the word shepherd because with clients that we've done this with, that's what we ask them to have the person think of, not a coach, not a manager, not a boss, but a shepherd who's going to manage these CPA exam candidates, help them create one-size-fits-one plans, meet with them regularly to help knock down roadblocks, meet with others to free up their schedule so that they are not overburdened with work, so they have time to study, bring in study resources, ask others in the firm to come in and explain or tutor on certain subjects, prep them for time off and advocate for time off when they're coming close to the actual exam date, heralding and hollering about the fact that they've passed and making a big deal of it.
Yes.
And then also in this cohort development process, what we're experiencing, the cohort starts to take over and says, here's what we need, here's what we want, here's how it's going to work. And it's magical. And in organizations that we've seen do this, their pass rates, their take rates and pass rates are up. Of course, we'd love you to pay for the exam review course. Of course, we would like to have you give them a bonus when they pass or finish. We'd love you to pay for them to take the exam. I mean, there's a whole bunch of things like that would be wonderful to do.
Yes.
But for sure, just the spirit of support is super critical. And right now it's pretty much missing. It's sort of sink or swim. And
Yes.
when I go to work, you told the story earlier, I have loans, I have credit cards, I have house payments. Life gets in the way here. It gets expensive to take that exam. It also gets hard to fit it in. And so we've been sort of saying, well, we tell a story like, I fit it in and they should too, and life isn't the
Yes.
same anymore. It's
Right.
different, and there's a lot more packed into it, and we can't expect them to be able to be successful in passing that exam. And frankly, I think workloads and the consistency and the volume, and our data shows this in the report, can be overwhelming, and it can make it so taking on that exam just isn't going to work. So advocacy for getting some time for them and getting some financial support is huge.
I think you made a lot of good points in there, but the one I really honed in on is, we can't just say, well, I managed to pass it and do all this and you should too. It's a generational thing. I know it's something my dad would probably say, right? But times are different. And, I think a lot of people, even back then, would have said, man, if I would have had support like this, I would have taken it in a heartbeat, right? So I think that's the mindset we have to get into. How can we champion these students to really get through to full licensure and make sure that they don't abort during the process, right? Because it's so overwhelming. So I love that point, and I just wanted to spell that out.
That's great.
This is awesome. I have a full page of questions left that I would love to ask, but we simply don't have time. Again, you're going to unpack all this in December at the Inspire conference. I do want to leave with this quote, and this is directly from the report, and I loved it. And I think it's a really positive place to end. Quoting the report, the National Pipeline Advisory Group report, while the challenges are daunting, the members of the National Pipeline Advisory Group feel a genuine sense of optimism. We know that when the accounting profession pulls together to solve a tough challenge, some amazing things can happen. And I believe that too. I love that quote.
I do too. You just gave me goosebumps. And we really are hopeful. We presented our plan in May of this year, a draft plan for feedback at council. And, we were hugging each other, and we were, it was almost like we were singing or something while we were presenting. It was so fluid and so passionate and so committed. And magic did happen as we learned and faced the challenges that we have as a profession and got the data to back them, and then created solutions and tested those with data too. We did test our ideas with students and with 2,000 students, by the way, and over 6,000 other stakeholders in the profession gave us input on this before we published. And so that magic that quote talks about, Kristy, it's real. And we can do this, but we've got to get going. Every individual has to get going. They've got to bubble this up to their firm finance department, to their college or institution, university, to their state society or other associations, and say, come on, let's pick some strategies out of this and get going.
Yeah. And backed by the passion that's truly embedded in this profession, I believe that magic can continue without a doubt. So Jen Wilson, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate your wisdom, your expertise, your insights. I will see you in Florida. And I'm hoping to have you back on the show for future podcasts as well.
That's awesome. Thank you so
Wonderful.
much, Kristy.
Thanks for joining us.